Hey, what's up, guys? It's Dan from UnitedQ. It's Wednesday, which means we have another awesome podcast to get you up to date, and I'm here with my co-host, BBQ.
Hello.
And we are brought to you by BBQ, BBQ Gourmet, and Smokewood Shack, our awesome sponsors. BBQ is dedicated to providing you with quality smoking products with top-notch service and free advice for beginners to pitmasters, and you can find them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under BBQ Smokers. Massive motorbike drive past. So if you're thinking of buying your first smoker, wanting to upgrade, or even looking for some authentic charcoal commercial smokers and just charcoal cabinet smokers, then check them out over at Max Barbecue. And BBQ Gourmet is devoted to promoting real barbecue and supplying the UK and Europe with top championship winning barbecue rubs, sauces, marinades and accessories from around the world, and in particular the United States.
Doing so well today.
You can find them on Twitter and online on BBQ Gourmet. So regardless of how you cook, whether it's on charcoal, wood, gas or electric, the real taste of barbecue can be yours all year round. And on today's show we have Andy Williams, who is a KCBS judge.
And all-round great guy.
All-round great guy. Member of the BBQ fam.
Mm-hmm.
Often seen around all the barbecue events and just general food events in the UK, really. He likes to try and get to as many as possible. So we're just going to give him a call. Let's hope this works. Calling.
Is it calling?
Hello.
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 How's it going, bro? You right?
Yeah, pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good, thanks. Great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you very much.
No worries.
It's a great honour.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. It's an honour to us. Do you want to introduce yourself, Andy, for all the listeners?
Okay, yeah, sure. My name's Andy Williams. I'm a barbecue fanatic, and I've been judging mostly sort of since 2010 in across Europe and in England and a couple of times in the States, and I've sort of dabbled in competing a little bit, but I've mostly sort of judged probably about 25 barbecue competitions on different circuits.
Awesome. And are they all KCBS, or are you doing a variety of different competitions?
I've done about 10 or 12 KCBS that are sort of quite highly regulated, and there's a lot of rules around how many judges you have, and at those events you normally only sort of judge 6 of each sort of the 4 main categories. So you sit on a table with 6 judges and you all try 6 ribs, 6 briskets. But I've judged at probably 8 or 9 grill stock events in England as well. And there, the sort of strategy is to have a table of just 5 judges, and we try all of the teams. That can be a bit of a challenge, especially this year when there were 27 teams, I think. So 27 briskets with 27 slices and 27 burnt ends is quite a task to try and munch.
What do you do to prepare yourself for that? Do you starve yourself for a few days, or do you actually eat even more to stretch your stomach ready for it all?
No. I normally don't eat very much for a few days before, and it's worse after, actually. It's normally you have to sort of, try and stick to vegetables and salad afterwards. It's a bit of a meat overload, really.
Yeah, I bet.
Doing the sort of 2 days, because you normally do the brisket and the pork butt both on the same day, and what people forget is that the brisket's got sort of slices and burnt ends, and then the pork has normally got pulls and sort of chunks and sort of a sliced money muscle, so it's quite.
And you need to taste all of it.
Yeah.
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 You need to judge, and you have to taste all the different parts that are presented.
And I think that you do, and I think that's important. And what the teams sort of sometimes forget is they'll put them all in a box because they think that's what they're supposed to do. But you quite often get like a burnt end that's not great, and that will pull the score down. It's, people should sometimes perhaps not put all that stuff in there. I know that McSlims a couple of times have only put pulled pork in, sort of going against the sort of grain of what the other teams do, and it's just such great pulled pork. They've won a couple of times just on keeping it really simple. I think people sometimes try to overcomplicate it. They look online and see what the Americans are doing and try to copy that. But just keep it simple and keep it really good quality, I think, is the sort of key.
Yeah, like you say, if you can concentrate all your efforts and nail one of them, that could be enough instead of perhaps being too thin on the top, like scoring with all of the different ones. If you just concentrate on getting one perfect, then that could give you a better overall score.
Yeah, it's the brisket normally that separates the teams out. I mean, if you sort of sit through sort of quite a few competitions, the chicken is normally the pretty high standard. Pulled pork, you can say, is normally pretty much of a really high standard. It's the brisket where people fall over because it's just a hard thing to cook. It's a long cook. It's quite a difficult thing to do. And I think what you find is here in England, because the teams aren't competing so much, they haven't practiced. You're seeing in Europe now, the teams are competing probably 2 or 3 times a month, and so they're probably cooking in between that. And the standard in Europe has really, really risen. And I think it's become quite a good scene over there. So it used to be that the sort of English teams were sort of always winning when they went over to Europe because they've been cooking for a lot longer than the Europeans have. But they're really definitely catching up, and it's become quite a good competition scene in Europe. And that's probably reflected. I mean, we've just had the American Royal and the Jack the last couple of weeks. And then the UK teams and the European teams are doing really well there too now. And I think, 5-6 years ago, they used to really bomb out, but I think they're sort of pitching in the middle of a lot of US teams who've been cooking for a long time.
I mean, yeah, you'll probably be able to enlighten us a bit more on the European side, but obviously we had the Bunch of Swines and the Smoking Yankees Belfast team from the UK that went over, and Bunch of Swines, they both did very well, and in particular Bunch of Swines overall 48, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, just to put that into perspective, the most winningest man in barbecue, Myron Mixon, was 62 with Jack's Old South. So, I mean, they did absolutely fantastic, placing 10th in chicken, 83rd overall in ribs, 60th in pork, and 96th in brisket.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we're talking about out of 200 teams, and in the grand scheme of things, on the Open as well, I mean, you've got 550 teams competing in that.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely amazing to see them doing so well.
Yeah, no, it is. And Bunch of Swines in particular have been sort of, their brisket has probably been top of the game in Europe for the last 3 or 4 years. And that cut in particular, I think it's about your experience of cooking it. And that's why the American teams have always done so well. They've been cooking like this for 20, 25 years, and the teams have got a lot of experience. And I think for Ed and Emma, to be cooking at that sort of standard is just incredible. I'm surprised their brisket didn't do better than that, actually, because their brisket's normally really good. But I guess that comes down to how it's doing on the day. But
exactly.
Yeah, I mean the European team. So I went to the first competition in Europe sort of 5 or 6 years ago in Amsterdam. And I think next year they're looking at having 40 competitions in Europe, which is just amazing because it's only a small place, really. And the Dutch are probably putting on 8 or 9 competitions just in Holland. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of teams in Holland then?
Yeah.
Cool. So,
awesome.
So hey, in the last year, how many different events have you been a judge at? Just trying to think. I think I did 5 or 6 last year. I was trying to do a few more, but sort of wasn't able to travel to as many as I planned to. So I've done sort of a few different circuits. I've done Toby's IBQN circuit here in England, so I did a couple of those. Did a grill stock, and then did a couple of KCBS events in Belgium and in Holland. And it's a great way to sort of travel also. I'd really encourage people who are involved or interested in barbecue to do a KCBS course. And if you're on the team, go and do it to see what the other teams are doing and get some clues about what it is you'll need to be doing. If you're just interested in barbecue and don't cook in a team, it's a great way to just become part of a community and travel, go to parts of Europe you haven't seen before, and eat some great food. It's really, I know you probably can't go into it too much with the KCBS side of things, but like, if for someone who does want to go on a course, what sort of thing could they expect to learn and like go through when they do a KCBS judging course?
Okay, so there's quite a lot of rules that are mostly centered around not being able to identify which team it is you're judging. The stakes in the US, where the rules sort of came from, are quite high. You have some quite high prize money in the US. Even in Europe now, there's an event in Germany where I think the first prize was €10,000, so the stakes are pretty big. So a lot of the rules are around not being able to identify it. So no sculptured meats. You can't sort of give away that, give a few judges the nod that, oh, this is what our meat's going to look like. No pooled sauces. So again, it's just trying to keep away from things that might identify this is our box. Although it is double blind. It is double blind judged, so the chances of you being able to get influence of a score are pretty low. So that's one of you go through the rules on the courses, and then quite often they'll cook some sort of, you get to judge a couple of rounds, so they'll cook some good ribs and they'll cook some bad ribs, and you'd all sit together and sort of judge them and then discuss them, because that's something you can't do on a KCBS event. When you're judging, there's got to be absolute silence, not allowed to even raise your eyes when you taste a great rib. So you go through that, and you go through the rules, and you go through the sort of atmosphere of it, because you're at KCBS events, you're normally sort of hidden away from the competition too, because they try to do it very, very secret. So yeah, you go through the rules, you have a go at judging, and then you try a few things out to sort of have a practice judge at it. And the big thing they will tell you is that it's not supposed to be a comparative exercise. So you're not, when you judge at a competition, you're not judging this rib against that rib or the next rib. You're judging it against the sort of standard. And I've had some quite heated arguments with other judges about that, because I think as you judge more, your standards change. You will eat a better brisket if you go to more competitions. So you start to think, well, I know this isn't great brisket because I've had a great brisket, when I was in Holland last year, and I think I've had some really heated debates with some of the KCBS organisers about that, because your terms of reference change. It's like you cooking at home. When you get better at it, you know that the ones you were doing a year ago weren't so good.
Yeah, and what makes it a good brisket and stuff, because people like it in different ways as well. So are you judging it based on your personal preference, or have they dictated a criteria to you which is defining what a good brisket is?
Well, they do define how to judge it in terms of its tenderness and in terms of taste, and give you examples of what good brisket is and what it shouldn't look like. So if you look through the KCBS rules, it'll tell you about, ribs are a great example, and that causes a lot of debate again. In a competition, ribs aren't supposed to be cooked so they're falling off the bone. They're supposed to sort of stick to the bone and have a bit of bite. If you overcook it, it goes quite mushy. But people who cook in ribs at home tend to prefer it like that. So it's just sort of having an understanding of what that looks like and how that is. So it's supposed to make it quite a consistent thing, but I've judged with a couple of American judges who've come over to Europe, and I think here in Europe we don't have our barbecue food so sweet, so we'll have a bit more heat in it and a bit more sharpness in it. And the Americans don't like that. If it's not really sugary and really sweet, they will score it down. So I think there is a difference in palates, and I think there is a sort of European barbecue taste evolving that is different from an American one, where they tend to use lots of sugar and syrup and things like that and make it very, very sweet.
So do you think that could be why a bunch of swines is nailing it all so much in the Europe, and then 96 in brisket there? Is that just the taste profiles not quite the same for American market? Or?
Yeah, and a lot of people do spend a lot of time sort of working on their taste profiles. I know Scott and Lynn's, they spent a lot of time, they realised that the flavour profile in the US was different, and they've done really well in local KCBS competitions in the States. And then they cook very differently there from the way they cook in Europe and in England.
Yeah, and I think even across the US, I remember from watching the Pitmasters programs on the TV, they'd even, in the different sort of areas of the US, they even have different flavour profiles as you travel around, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, and ribs are another, again, a lot of places will only have dry ribs, other places will have, ribs mocked in sauce. And so I think the teams who compete in the States, they will tend to operate regionally too. They don't tend to travel long distances because they're normally cooking in that region where they know they do well. The big players obviously are pretty good at sort of adapting what they're doing.
Yeah.
but most of the teams will normally, and the sort of the mustard and sharp sauces that some parts of the States have, and other parts of the States have a lot of really sort of sugary sauces. I guess that's a sign of a sort of regional variation. And I know down in Texas that the competitions down there are very different because they're mostly cooking brisket, and I don't think their pork works so well because of that.
And the actual score in itself, how does the numbers work out? Because I see from Bunch of Swine's pick their chicken, it's 177.7144. How does that number come out?
I don't know. They have the KCS people have a mysterious software program that translates normal scores from judges into a very complex and long number. So normally when you're judging under KCBS rules, you score something from 0 or from 1 to 9. So 9 is incredible, excellent, the best thing I've ever eaten. And you score that 9 for appearance, so what it looks like in the box when it's presented to you, for taste and for texture. So your thing's sort of 3 9s or 2 8s and a 9 if it's a really good box. So I'm never really clear how they get 168.739. I don't know how they do that, but I know it's very complex because they do really weird things. They weight the scores, so not all the scores have the same weight in KCBS. And then they will drop the lower score. So if you've got 6 people all judging your ribs, for example, on one table, if someone scores it really low because for some reason they don't like it, that score gets dropped in the instant, to try and get sort of a consistent fair score.
It makes the averages work out better, I guess.
Yeah, but I think the way you get to that sort of KCBS score is quite complex, and they have a very complicated spreadsheet. Doing it.
Yeah, I just wondered how it ended up into point numbers. I was like, that seems strange.
Yeah, no,
very weird scorings.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the weighting does that, but you'd think that it would still be a whole number. But I suspect the multiplier they're using to weight it is probably got decimal points in it that generate that sort of thing.
Yeah, and then you said the number of judges is down to 6 per table.
Yeah.
And then how many tables will they have? Just depending on is that just how big the competition is you have?
Yeah, so the KCBS organisers, you normally end up with slightly more judges than you have teams. So if you've got 20 teams, you probably have sort of 24 judges. So you won't always get 6 pieces of meat on your table if the numbers are slightly out, but you'll always have more judges. So when you look at the American Royal, I think they had 620 judges there judging the team. So
wow.
I don't know how you organise that.
No.
That's just incredible.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean the logistics of trying to get meat from a team that's come in as a blind entry then to go in to judge and then collating all the scores must be really complex.
Yeah. So when you say it's double blind, what does that mean? It's taken to someone who then takes it to someone else. Is that the double blind? Is it? Yeah.
So the teams have a numbered box. So that the team that's competing will have a number that's their team number of the competition. That goes on your box. When you turn it in, the people in the sort of turning area will then put a different sticker on it. So it goes to the table with a different number on it. So it's got 2 different numbers, which hopefully means that you can never trace it back. And then they have a system that ensures that, so if you're on a table of 6 judges, you won't ever taste 2 different meats from the same team. So you'll never do the ribs and the brisket from one team. You'll only ever look at one lot of meat from one team, and they try very hard to ensure that happens. So you have a checklist of numbers to make sure that you haven't seen that team's number before.
There's a lot of organisation involved, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Yeah. I mean, we sort of helped out running the Pengrilly barbecue thing last year, and when you just sit down and try and work out how to do a small competition like that from scratch, you realise how complex it is, and you start to see why someone like KCBS and the IBQM people have such complex rules, really.
Yeah, definitely. It needs to be there, doesn't it, to make it fair?
Yeah, it does, yeah, and I think if that does bring a lot of credibility to sort of the teams. If you've got 25 teams who are cooking for 2 days and invested a lot of time and effort and money in getting there and practicing, it's important that you can stand by the results, really.
What about like getting out and walking around? Are you allowed as a judge to like walk around the competition and see people cooking and stuff, or do you need to almost stay anonymous and out the way?
Yeah, so the competitions normally run over 2 days. So they normally turn up on a Friday in Europe and then cook on the Saturday and then turn in on the Sunday. So you're not really supposed to talk to the teams on the Sunday, but you can go and have a chat to them and have a beer with them on the Saturday. Really, it's turn-in morning that you need to be a bit careful, because you don't want to see them what they're putting in the box, because you can recognise stuff if people are putting it in a box in a certain way, and you see that on the morning, you will recognise it when it turns up in the competition, and that's an element that they don't want to have. So normally there's sort of no fraternising, as the Americans like to call it.
Yeah. Have you ever tasted something and just gone, I know whose this is because I can just taste whose it is, or not? I
think at one point I tried so much of Ed and Emma's brisket that was always winning. Sort of in smaller European competitions and in grill stuff, you get to the point where it's one of 2 or 3 teams normally, because it's just of such a different standard. If you're eating 25 briskets at grill stuff, for example, you'd normally get sort of 15 or 20 of them are pretty average, and probably only 2 or 3 that stand out. So you normally start to recognise sort of flavour profiles on the standard of it. And chicken's another one. On the turn-in, when you look in the box, you get a real wide range of how well it's presented, and you'll get like 2 or 3 teams that you just open the box and go, these people are cooking at an international standard, and the rest of it isn't. So I guess you do start to get to see it. But you've got to be, if you go to a competition with 70-odd judges, you've got to be lucky to see a team's box that you've seen before, and then you'd only ever see one of them. So the chances of being able to influence results are really negligible, I think. And then the other thing that KCBS do is they look at the sort of the spread of the scores, and the judges will chat about it afterwards, and they're normally pretty consistent in my experience. So if you're supposed to only take one bite of something because you've got quite a lot of meat to eat, but if you get a really good rib or a really good bit of chicken, if you look around the judges' table, the judges invariably have all eaten all of the same one. There's only one rib bone that's stripped bare, and it's always normally the same one. So I think it does work. People sort of doubt it a little bit, but I think it's come out of 20 years of competition, the sort of KCBS and those similar sorts of competitions. I think it's probably as good as you're going to get.
Do you think there's like advantages of like your turn-in time, of like if you're last, they're like judges too full up and not judging it as well?
That's a real. There's a lot of debate about that, but I've cooked with a guy from the US, Byron, who makes Byron's butt rub, and he's obsessed about turning in the very last. So you've got a 10-minute window to turn in your 4 samples. So the chicken starts at 12 o'clock, but you can turn it in between 5 minutes before 12 or 5 minutes after 12. And he will insist on you only having 10 seconds left of that 10-minute window. And it's really stressful because he's still painting the sauce on, still messing around. Other teams say you should try and get it in early because it'll get straight to the judges and it'll still be hot. If you get it in last, it might hang around. So I don't know. There's a big argument about whether I want to be first, last, or in the middle.
Because you get at the beginning and you just think, this is the best rib I've ever eaten. I'll eat the whole thing. And by the time you get to the end, you're like, actually, I think that one might be better, but I'm full up now because I've eaten all the other ones.
Yeah, I think that's the sort of benefit you have of having some more experienced judges. And I think some of the criticism that's been of KCBS in Europe has been if you get a big competition and you're starting to struggle to get judges, you will pull in some quite inexperienced judges. And if you've got a competition with a lot of inexperienced judges, the judging scores do start to look very, very weird, and the teams get quite upset about it. So you get teams who will always come first, second, third, or fourth. They go to a big competition and they come in 10th or 15th or 20th. And they might argue that it's because the judges aren't aren't experienced enough. You know, if you haven't seen a lot of barbecue, that's the sort of thing you do. You'll eat the first rib and think, oh, this is fantastic. You give it a really high score. And that's not the way you're supposed to be doing it. And it takes time for you to get your palate adjusted, really, and get an understanding of what it is you're trying to look for. And I think Europe, you know, there's a sort of core of judges now in Europe that have probably done 10, 15, 20, 25 competitions. And if you can get enough of those at your competition, and the organisers will try and ensure that those judges are mixed up with less experienced judges. I think that's normally getting a fairer outcome.
But it is like a vicious circle, because without these new judges judging, they're never going to get experience. So it's sort of like you need to have that a good mix of new judges and experienced judges. And as you said, they tend to be placed with the new judges on tables so that they can advise, or not advise them, but...
Because you said you're all silent, and you're not even allowed to talk to each other, so you're not.
That's right. Yeah.
You're not really going to learn anything from anyone else. You just got to learn by doing, I guess. Learn by eating.
Yeah, you normally talk about it afterwards. So once everybody's finished judging and you put your slips in, you probably have a chat about what it was. It's a really good thing to fill in judges' comment cards too, particularly if you don't think the team's done really good. Otherwise, they don't get much feedback about why you think it wasn't very good. So is it too salty? Is it too smoky? Does it taste of career? So sort of more experienced judges will tend to fill those comment cards in to give a bit of positive feedback to the teams. But I think in this country, sort of KCBS events, you'd struggle to get a breadth of experience with judges, because they'll normally run a course and then they'll tend to all be judging at your event. And what you need to do is try and get some more experienced people in. And I think we struggle a little bit here because we just haven't had enough competitions in KCBS competitions, particularly.
And then hopefully things will change and we can get some more competitions and some more judging classes, some more competitions, meaning more experienced judges, and hopefully things will just get better and better from there.
I think the other thing we're quite lucky is we've got, Toby obviously did a lot of work for a long time, and there's some really talented cooks around sort of the IBQN circuit as well. You've had a lot of people, I think, on your podcast, haven't you? People like Steve Hayes and
definitely
Ed Nemmer have all sort of come from Toby's sort of school of barbecue, if you want to call it that. And then, so we have got some good people about. Perhaps we need to get a few of them judging a bit more, because they've obviously got a lot of experience. They know the pitfalls of a brisket.
Definitely. They do, like Toby does his own IBQN sort of judging criteria as well for his competition. So like I say, they've done similar sort of things already, so they'd be good to get those sort of people involved.
Yeah. So I've done a couple of those, a couple of Toby's competitions. So the Big Meat this year, and I did Mayhem in May this year too, and that was really good. I think the sort of philosophy is very similar between KCBS and IBQN, but they have a few little tricks they do at IBQN that probably are more supportive of newer teams. There's a dreadful rule in KCBS, but a foreign object rule. So if you've got like a bit of wooden stick in your meat, it gets disqualified. And what happens is when people are probing their brisket, you sometimes get a tiny bit of foil pushed into the meat that you don't see until the judges got it. And it's quite heartbreaking for a team who's been cooking for 2 days to get disqualified for a tiny bit of foil. I think the IBQN people are a bit more relaxed about that sort of thing happening, really, which is probably a fairer approach. And I think KCBS has changed this year. They've changed the foil rule, so they're sort of...
I see it is fair and it isn't fair, though, because if you're in a restaurant and you got served up some meat that had a piece of foil in the middle of it, then I'd definitely send it back.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Or hair in your... whatever it was.
Yeah. More meat, less hair.
Right, so sticking with KCBS, because it's just an easy reference for us to go with, what is like a day in the life of the judges, or what would your usual sort of competition protocol or regime be? Like you said, the teams arrive on like the Friday. Do you tend to arrive on the Friday with the teams, and then do you get when's like the cooks meet? Do you go attend the cooks meeting? There's a judges meeting. Like, what is the sort of day in the life of a KCBS judge at an event?
Yeah, I mean, it depends how far I'm travelling, to be honest. If I'm sort of going a long way, so I quite often go in my camper van over to Europe. I'll normally go on the Friday, and I'll go to the judges' meeting and the team meeting, and just sort of, because I know quite a lot of the people, it's just quite a sociable event to sort of go and have a chat around, and then go and talk to the teams and see what they're doing on the Saturday. And then normally quite a few judges will come in on the Sunday morning, so they'll sort of drive in, and then it's a bit more strict then. So I'd probably say about half the judges will come in just on the Sunday morning. And then there's normally judges' registration at 9:30, and then the judges' briefing. So they take you through the stuff. And you're not really supposed to, you're not supposed to socialise with the teams after that. So new judges in particular think that means they need to just stand in the field and not talk to anybody. But I think the people who've been around a little bit more, you can sort of have a wander around the cooking field and just say hello to people. It's just, it's just been a bit sensible about talking to them. So yeah, I normally go on the Friday. There's normally a bit of a party on a Saturday. So teams are Friday night or Saturday night. The teams are, we'll normally have a few beers and there's quite a social evening. And then the Sunday sort of when it's a bit more serious. And then I normally try to stay on for the prize giving as well. And a lot of judges don't do that in Europe. A lot of them will just sort of clear out. But there's sort of a group that will normally stay on until the prize giving at the end and sort of goes from there. So it's a bit of a range, really.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And when as a judge, do you have to annually redo a course, or is there if you judge so many events, you keep your certification, or is it just a one-off thing? You just do it once and you've got it forever.
Yeah, and that's another sort of debate, really. That there's people who did a course sort of 10, 15 years ago that may never do many competitions. So they just sort of come out and do the odd competition here and there, and would probably benefit from going back on another course, or perhaps you have to do a certain number, but that's not what they do. KCBS, you just have to keep paying your subscription fee, and you stay a judge. And I feel the Americans I know are they're registered as judge number 384. I think I'm judge number 57,000. I think at the moment they're on 89,000 or 90,000. It is completely insane. So I guess that is the other sort of side of it. But if I look at sort of what's happening in Europe, there's probably a core of about 30 or 40 judges that you will normally meet at most of the competitions. And we have one guy called Stephen Mera, who's the first master judge. So when you've done 30 competitions, you've judged 30 competitions, you do an online exam, and then you're classed as a master judge, and he's our first sort of European master judge.
Awesome.
And what does that status give you then? Just a bit of paper.
I don't know. Everybody bows
the title.
Yeah. Everyone throws brisket at you when you arrive.
To the World Championships in Lynchburg, and he judged the American Royal this year. So because it's quite a new thing, the KCBS people will invite you out to sort of do that. So I was sort of involved in the European barbecue scene as it sort of picked up. So I got invited to judge at the Jack Daniels a couple of years ago. So Wayne Lohman is the guy that organises a lot of the international competitions. He sort of rang me up and said, "Do you fancy coming to the World Championships in Lynchburg?" So that was just a great opportunity, really, for me.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you're like a master judge, do your scores count double or something?
I don't know, but yeah, they dot them about. What you get in Europe a little bit now is you get a few Americans will come out and judge. So they did until they started to think Europe was just full of too much trouble and too much angst. So they stopped coming this year. But you did see a few sort of master judges coming out from the States and judging here, and I've met a few people who do that. There's sort of a small group of them that like to do that.
So you'll be approaching it soon. You said you've done 25 now. Oh, no, they're not all KCBS, I guess.
Yeah, they're not all KCBS, unfortunately. Yeah, I need to try and work on that. But it's getting easier to do now. There's a lot more competitions going on next year.
No brisket red carpet yet then for you.
No. But when I went to Lynchburg to the World Championships, the judges had their own toilet. So I thought that was almost royalty.
So how has it been at the Jack then? How was judging at the Jack? Because I mean, the Jack, you got the Jack and the Royal tend to be like the two sort of
the pinnacle.
the pinnacle really of like
competition.
barbecue. I mean, Miss Piggy's another massive shout out to them. Sixth in brisket. I mean, that is absolutely incredible. And also did really well across the board. I mean, their Chef's Choice was another really good one, and they placed 66 overall.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's amazing again. So congratulations to those guys. Both UK teams, Miss Piggies and Bunch of Swines. Oh, and can't leave out the Smoking Yankees Belfast as well. All repping the UK scene really, really hard over there and doing really, really well. So thanks to you guys for travelling over and spending your money and investing all the time and stuff, guys. So thank you very much and congratulations. But so how was it to actually be there and judge?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting debate that the Americans will have with you that the Jack and the Royal aren't always representative of proper grassroots barbecue, and that I know a couple of my American friends have said, yeah, it's all very well going to the Jack, but that's a big commercial event. You need to go out to some of these little hicky places that have been having barbecue competitions in an old-fashioned way for the last 20 years. So I don't know whether the World Championships is truly representative of the best barbecue in the States. I don't know, because the way they choose the team. So if you're from a small part of a state that isn't cooking particularly well, you'll go to the World Championships because every state sends someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you get states that, if you get like a concentration of really good barbecue teams who are cooking to an amazing standard, they won't all go to the Jack because only one team will get a bung to go there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I had a great time. It's just a fantastic event, just because it's the sort of epicenter of barbecue, really. And I haven't been to the American World, but that sort of looks, to have 600 teams is almost just on another level. But whether that is truly the best of the best of the best barbecue, I don't know. I just don't know.
That's your shortcut route to get to the competition, is to find a state with a really either no barbecue team or a really rubbish one.
And what you find is teams will travel there to compete there because they know they'll get through to the Jack from there.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's politics and everything.
I might do it.
But,
You need to.
It'll be my only chance. I'm going to go do it.
I mean, I've been invited to judge a competition in Italy next year that's been running for a couple of years. That's the Prime Uve one, and they will only invite teams that have won in Europe. So it's invitation only, and the judges were invitation only as well. So I'm really, really pleased that they've invited me to judge at that next year.
Yeah, I'll put in a good word for you.
Sorry?
I said I'll put in a good word for you to do it. Sorry.
Thanks. And then, of course, there's the BBQ event next year as well.
Yes.
That's another invitational. So I think the invitational one on the Saturday is like all the teams that have won across Europe. So that'd be a really interesting event.
Yeah, I think everyone who's won in Europe's been invited, and they've had loads of people signing up and taking places, which is awesome. They've got an open as well going on, I believe. So it's like a 2-day sort of running competition, hand in for the open and then hand in for the invitational, split over the 2 days. That'll be a really good event, and that's Miss Piggy's. They're doing that one, so I'm really looking forward to that one. That should be really cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if I can. I don't know. Is that invitational judges only, or is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had to apply to judge at that, I think, and they looked at how many competitions you judged at before for the invitational one, but I don't know what's happening in the open one. But for the open competition, that'd be a great opportunity for like some of the teams in the UK to go and pitch themselves up against some of the best teams in Europe too. So that'd be a really interesting event. See how some of the teams get on there.
Yeah, definitely. I've also I've been, because we sort of have put the feelers out for possibly holding a KCBS, and we've had a couple of judges contact us that are UK based as well that have done a couple of competitions this year. So that I weren't even aware that they were they were there. So there's a couple of people in the woodwork that have been out there and getting qualified, getting sanctioned, and doing the course and getting some experience. So there are some sort of hidden people there in the background, and hopefully you might get some judges from Europe travelling over. Who knows?
Yeah. No, I think there's quite a demand for sort of to have more competitions. I think that, the one you guys are putting on that'll go down really well. I think it'd be great, and if we can get some qualified judges over for that. I do know, there are some around in England. It might be worth trying to contact KCBS. They should have a list of who's in the UK who's qualified. There's a couple of guys in who judge the IBQM ones who are KCBS judges as well. They've done a little bit. I know there are a few guys around.
Cool. Yeah, no. That's what I was surprised at, is that a few have been in touch. So yeah, that's awesome. You were also sanctioned to judge a few other things, so like steak cookout and stuff like that. So
yeah,
did that go? Have you judged any competitions yet, or is it like quite a new thing that you're looking to get into, and it was the chance to become sanctioned and then hopefully get involved with a few competitions in the future?
Yeah, it was. They just started doing a few of them in Europe at the moment. So I got sanctioned when the guys who organised that came out from the States. So I judged one competition in Holland, but they have 4 or 5 of those in Europe, I think.
And what are they?
Did last year.
They are the.
So it's the State Cook-Off Association. It's a great thing to have bolted onto another competition, because you cook 2 ribeye steaks to medium rare, and that's it. You turn them in, and they're judged. And you don't need a big trailer load of stuff. You don't need a big complex smoker. You don't need to learn how to cook brisket. It's just cooking a steak. And I think most people probably imagine they're able to do that. And it was a fascinating thing to judge, because so everybody gets the same ribeye steak that's all come from the same supplier. They lay all the steaks out on a big table, and you get a lottery ball as to when you're going to choose your steaks off the table. You go off, you've got 2, and you cook one as an experiment, and the other one is your turn-in one. And the judges judge that. And it's just amazing that the same cut of meat cooked by 10 or 15 different people could taste so different. It was just blew my mind. And the guys that come out from the US will teach you all about what to look for in a good ribeye, what makes a great ribeye. Again, they'll cook a few, well, and a few badly, and a few indifferently, and you sort of have a look at how those all sort of turn out. And it's a similar sort of judging system to KCBS, but they have a slightly different scoring system. And then you give that an overall impression mark as well, which I always sort of quite like. And they've got to be cooked to medium rare, which I found a little bit difficult, because I prefer them cooked rarer than that. So when you get a steak that's cooked rarer, you want to give it a higher score, but it's supposed to be cooked to medium rare. And if it's cooked rarer than that, you mark it down, which I found a bit difficult.
And I hear,
but it's a great thing. Sorry?
I was going to say that, as you were saying about the IBQN, how they're more sort of kinder to newer competitors. Also, the Steak Cook-Off Association, they're also really about promoting cooking, and they don't encourage bad scoring and stuff like that, do they? It's all about sort of people having a good time and encouragement, and obviously people winning. It is a competition, but they try to be as positive as possible, don't they? Yeah,
and I think their sort of view is that, if you're not giving the steak a 9 or an 8, then it's bombed anyway. So there's no point in giving it a 5 or a 4 or a 3. All that's doing is making people feel bad. There will be steaks in there that every score's a 9, and that's the one that's going to win, and the rest are just, people having a great time. But it's a great thing to do, because people just turn up with a little grill, just cook a steak, turn it in, you've competed. And it's probably a good way for people to get into sort of competition barbecue a little bit.
Can you use any method you want to grill it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you get much variation on that, or does everyone tend to cook it in the same way?
You get people using grill grates, the sort of aluminium grill grate thing.
Yeah.
And then at their competitions, the people who manufacture grill grates will give I think it's a $200 prize to the team that scores the best with using their grill grates as well. So there's all sorts of little twists and turns in it. It is a really good event to sort of stick on a competition. And I think they ran 1 or 2 last year, but this year there's probably been 5 or 6 at the KCBS events. They'll do that on the Saturday. They'll have a stake round on the Saturday, and a lot of teams take part in that. It's quite a lot of fun, you know.
Yeah, some people do take it quite seriously, don't they? Because I think I was listening to, I don't know, either a YouTube video or another podcast or something where they were talking about doing the stake off, and they like have their timings down to precision of like, we'll turn it after this many seconds, and timing it all on the watches, and it's like all very quickly that it all happens, but it's like they'll measure the thickness and calculate the timings based on the thickness and everything.
Right, but you still sort of got the randomness of the meat there, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely.
You know.
Yeah.
But again, they just had their the national or the international world final steak cook-off competition on a big farm in Texas, and I think you get invited to that if you're the best sort of European team. You go and cook for the best American teams. They have prize money and stuff. It's it's a good little event. I like to do
cheap level
more.
of entry to get into it as well.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a bit that you've done some competitions and cooking yourself. Were you part of a competition team, or are you more of a home cook?
We set up a competition team. So when I first came back from doing my KCDF course in America, we went to the first grill stock, so I sort of annoyed John Finch for weeks and weeks and weeks, and just kept asking if I could come and judge, and he just gave up in the end and let me to stop me nagging him. So that's how I sort of got involved in grill stock to start with. But I took a few friends over who were sort of into sort of home cooking, and we decided we'd set up a barbecue team. And we met this guy, I don't know if you know, N. Tobrelitz, who's an Estonian guy who lives in England quite a lot. But he runs a big barbecue competition in Estonia. And he persuaded us to go to Estonia, so we flew out and competed. And it was the only time our teams ever competed, and we came third out of 85 teams in Estonia.
Wow.
We cooked an English roast dinner on a barbecue, so we did a full fillet and then cooked Yorkshire pudding, and we did really well.
Gosh.
But it's just getting the time, and getting the commitment. And one of the guys was a chef, the other guy was a policeman, and trying to get enough time to keep practicing and commit to doing it. We just couldn't find the time. So the teams that are able to do that, they're investing so much time and effort in competing. And then I sort of help out Byron Chisholm, who comes out from the US. He competes in a few European competitions every year. So I sort of helped him out at a few of those. So he'll fly in, he'll borrow a grill off the organisers, and he'll borrow a gazebo, and he'll just cook up in a competition. And that's been great for my home cooking, just because I've sort of seen a master at work. Byron's been cooking for 25 years. So just to sit alongside him and seeing what he's doing and pitch a few ideas has been really useful for me.
Awesome. What do you cook on at home? What's your weapon of choice?
I've got a little monolith from the little monolith juniors that I use for sort of low and slow stuff. But I sort of started out with Pro Qs. We sort of met Ian out in Estonia, and he sort of supplied us with barbecues for a little while. And I live in a little village in the Forest of Dean then, in a place called Park End, and there's only 300 people. And at one point there were 6 smokers in a village of 300 people. And if you go around now, there's still people who've got like a Pro Q smoker who'll just be sitting there smoking stuff. And it's just like a little focus of barbecue. Home cooks, they're people who they don't compete much. They've got one guy's got an offset and he just cooks anything in it. It's Sunday dinner, you just chuck that in there instead of putting it in the oven. And that to me is like the real sort of spirit of barbecue at home. So yeah, I've had a couple of Pro Qs. I've got a little ceramic at the moment. I've got a little rotisserie that I imported from the US that I really like as well.
Yes. Did you find yourself cooking a lot of barbecue?
Yeah, I normally, in the week I'll probably cook 2 or 3 times, 3 or 4 times on the barbecue. Mostly grilling stuff, to be honest. But I will do sort of chickens or beef short ribs on the smoker. I think it's still my favourite. I've never cooked a brisket though.
No.
I think I've seen brisket go so wrong so often in so many competitions. I just won't go near it. You know, I'm not spending 16 hours for this tennis ball to emerge.
Dan did one. Was it last weekend now? Wasn't it? I think,
Yeah,
and it came out really good, didn't it?
It came out really good. Yeah, really, really happy with it. I don't know. I held it for like a stupid amount. I held it for like 6 hours afterwards, after it came off, and it was like a 14-hour cook, 225. Didn't wrap it during the cook at all, which is a bit different. But I'm a barky sort of guy, and I just wanted to experiment with it and just see how it held up with sort of moisture, which is also very important. And I got the brisket from Mark from Bob's Family Butchers, and it was a fantastic bit of meat. And also used like some of the knowledge that I got from Ed and Emma at their competition class.
Of course, yeah.
Which was awesome. Learnt loads over the weekends, and just cooked it and took it off, wrapped it in butcher's paper, and then held it for. I think it was. I said 5 hours the other day, but I think it was more approaching 6 hours, and because I was out all day comparing at an event, the Burnham-on-Sea Food Festival. We were running the stage, the food demo stage, all day. So I went there and did that, and then came back and brought it out and sliced it, and it was just like absolute heaven. It was real. I was surprised in myself, to be honest.
A little bit nervous when as you were leaving. You're like, I don't know what I'm going to be going back to.
I mean, it is when you're spending like 55, 60, 70 quid on a bit of meat, and you're going out for the day and then
just leaving
it in a box for 6 hours as well. It is a nervous thing. And again, like when you try people's like Ed and Emma's and at their competition course, I think that I tried their low and slow one they did, and that was potentially the best brisket I'd ever tried. I think it was the best brisket I'd ever eaten, and then their hot and fast one, which was also very good as well. I think I prefer personally the low and slow one they did, even though I know they're cooking the hot and fast one for their competitions. I think my taste preferred the low and slow, but yeah, I was really, really happy with it. It turned out really, really well, and everyone loved it. Went down an absolute treat, and yeah, really, really pleased with it. So I think I'm going to give it another go, get another one on the order from Mark, and have another cook. Why not? Yeah.
I know the foil thing is quite interesting on brisket. So when you particularly at grill stock, you're seeing quite a lot of briskets sort of during the day. The number of them that just taste like pot roast because I think people are foiling them too much. And you're right. I think you lose the bark and you lose that essence of brisket if you foil it. I know it keeps it moist, and it's a debate to be had. But I remember one year judging at grill stock with Texas Joe, and all he did was sat there going, "This isn't brisket. This isn't brisket. This isn't brisket. This isn't brisket." And I think he's come from a very traditional route of what a brisket should look like. And I think cooking it unfoiled and getting a good bark on it and getting that flavour on the outside is the way.
Well, for me, it was just I've sort of recently made the decision. Like I would say, the last sort of 5 butts I've done have been. That sounded a bit jazzy. The last 5 pork butts that I've cooked have been unwrapped. That sounds right. Okay, anyway, I left them unwrapped because I love a good bark, and and that's the choice I made. And then I cooked some ribs the other week, and again left them unwrapped and had an absolute beautiful result. And I was just like, okay, well, let's just give it a go with the brisket as well, and see what, because I'm the same as you. I have a real problem with the pot roasty sort of finish. I completely understand what you're saying, and that is something that, and it completely changes the flavour and texture of the brisket, and I can't describe it any other way other than the pot roasty finish, and that's what it is to me. And I don't know, because I haven't asked every time I've had it. I've not asked the cook how they cooked it, but so it does happen, and that is one thing that I don't like, and I think it isn't brisket. It doesn't taste. It tastes different. It's a different thing for me. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but that's where I
But you
decided.
agree.
But I agree with it, and I love brisket. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. People often ask me what my favourite is. I still think I think a good rib is a thing you need to try and find. You know, there are great ribs and there are average ribs and there are nice ribs. But people always say to me, what are you looking for when you're sort of judging barbecue? And I still remember 2 or 3 times out of the 20 competitions I've judged, when you take a bite off a piece of rib that's not too saucy, because teams over-sauce everything too much, in my opinion. But you take a bite of a rib, and there's a little dribble of juice just runs down the bone as you pull the meat away from it. And that, I've remembered the 2 or 3 times that's happened to me. And that's what you're looking for. You know, it's a little bit crunchy on the outside, not too much sauce, nice spice, but it's the texture of the meat. It's just perfect. And you don't see that very often, because it's a hard thing to do, isn't it? You know, you're cooking those ribs for sort of 4 or 5 hours for a 10-minute window, and then they sit in a box, and if you're unlucky, they sit in a box for 15 minutes before they get to a judge's table. There's so many variables around getting that piece of meat perfect. It's not perfect when it left you. It's got to be perfect when the judge opens the box, and I think there's a bit of a random element there that you need to try and overcome sometimes.
Yeah, like you say, it's because it's a random element. You can't, even if you practiced at home to allow it 15 minutes to sit in the box, maybe one time it will only sit in there for 5.
Yeah.
So you can never really, it's always going to be down to a little bit of luck at the end, isn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah, but it's the same teams always winning in Europe, don't it?
Yeah, there's got to
You
be
look at,
there's some skill involved. Yeah, it's not all luck.
Yeah, there's like half a dozen teams that are always in the top 3, 4, or 5 people. You know, I could tell you who some of them are. You know, just off the top of my head, and they're always up there. And like if you look at there's a European barbecue championship thing where they give teams points every time they compete. So it's not the KCBS ladder; it's a European thing, and it's normally the top 3 or 4 teams are always the same teams, and they're always the ones doing well in competitions. So I think there's been 35 competitions in Europe this year, and the people that have come out on top are, I think the Bunch of Swines and Miss Piggies were sort of both in the top 3 or 4. And there's a couple of Dutch teams that are up there as well. But those are people, if you go to competition, they're always doing really well. And that's what I was saying before. You don't recognise their turn-ins, but you know, well, this is of that sort of standard. It's probably one of those 5 teams all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we are at an hour, so I am going to jump in and cut that there. Ben's shaking his head at me.
We could just chat for hours, I think. Don't think we need to stop this one, but there we go. We made the rules, so we got to stick to them.
Yeah. So thank you very much for coming on, Andy. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And
thank you. Yeah,
I'm sure we'll catch up with you soon. And
look forward to seeing you at the next event that you're at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go and watch My Kitchen Rules now and see what's happening there.
Yeah. We're going to have to
shoot off
and try and see it ourselves. Right. Catch you soon, mate.
Right. Yeah. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks very much, guys.
Cheers. Bye.
See you soon. Bye. Bye.
Almost pressed stop then, but I need to do the outro. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We've recorded yet another awesome podcast to get you over Hump Day. As always, we're brought to you by ProQ, BBQ Gourmet and Smokewood Shack, our awesome sponsors. ProQ is dedicated to providing with quality smoking products with top-notch service and free advice from beginners to pitmasters, and you can find them on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram under ProQ Smokers. So if you're thinking about buying your first smoker or wanting to upgrade or looking for some authentic charcoal cabinet smokers, check them out over at Max Barbecue. BBQ Gourmet is devoted to promoting real barbecue and supplying the UK and Europe with top championship winning barbecue rubs, sauces, marinades and accessories from the US and around the world. And you can find them on Twitter and online under BBQ Gourmet. So regardless of how you cook, whether it's on charcoal, wood, gas or electric, the real taste of summer can be yours all year round. And Smokewood Shack delivers quality smoking wood every time. They provide the smoking goodness, you provide the talent. So if you're looking for smoking wood chunks, dust, chips or planks, then head on over to smokewoodshack.com and you can find them on Twitter at SmokewoodShack. So goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me, and I'm the best cook.
See you next time, guys.
I win.
Yeah, the only thing is, doing like Smokewood Shack delivers quality smoking wood every time. They provide the smoky goodness. You
I provide the talent.
That's pretty awkward though, because what James said to me the other day is that
He told me
he
didn't really wanna
provided the
send
smoky
you any more
goodness
wood.
and you had no talent.